Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara this morning with me, Peter Giblett. And I was hoping to be joined by Angela Browne this morning, but at the moment she's a no-show. Okay, so here we go. Dave's away on Kiwanis duties for the rest of the week. So I'm just going to kind of pick this up and take the flow. If Angela joins, she joins. But here, I'm going to do something really brave. If you want to come and join us on the show, click the link in the comments beneath right now, and you can come onto the show and make your comments. All right, talking about a couple of topics today, and basically we're talking about Trump's Golden Dome. There we go. Angela, there we go. Angela being added to the show.
Yes, how you go? How you going?
There we go. There we go. How are you? How are you? I was just saying Dave is away on Kiwanis duties for the rest of the week, and will be no, Dave is not sick. He's not sick. He's doing Kiwanis duties today. So we've got Angela. Basically, there's a conference in Niagara Falls for Kiwanis, and he's kind of a volunteer, and he's doing lots of things. So he's a volunteer and doing work for the conference.
Oh, wow.
So I always think it's, when I hear about people doing things like that, I'm always happy. Okay. Morning, Karen. Morning. Welcome to the show.
Wow.
And welcome to the show. And welcome to the show, Mike. So, way to go, Dave. Yeah, absolutely.
And Betty, too. Betty's there, too.
Yeah. Good morning, Betty. Yeah, as well. Okay. So let's get on to our first topic of the day, Trump's Golden Dome. Right? I don't know. Hey, I don't know about this, but hey, first of all, he says Canadians will pay $61 billion to be part of it, or we can become the 51st state. So what he means is Canadians will pay $61 billion to be part of it. Either we have to cough up the cash now, or we cough up the cash in our taxes. Isn't that the truth? Isn't it? Putting aside the question about whether or not we want to become 51st state, that's the truth of the matter.
Or even part of the Golden Dome.
There's going to be a tax bill of Golden Dome for $61 billion. And hey, I got to put up my hand and say, before we go anywhere about Golden Dome and the 51st state nonsense, haven't we heard this before? Didn't Reagan Ronnie want to put up a space defense system? Don't we have a space defense system?
Yes. Strategic Defense Initiative.
The Strategic Defense Initiative. And do you remember that? The reason we called Ronald Reagan Ray-Gun Ronnie was because of the space defense system.
Yes.
I don't know whether it ever happened. I suspect not.
No.
I suspect our abilities for space defense. Well, actually, a large part of putting up space defense is about protecting the planet, not about attacking, not about defense, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because the whole idea about putting nukes up in space is not about nuking this planet, but is about if we need to, because nukes actually have the power, we go and they've already tested it. We nuke an incoming meteorite.
Yeah.
The whole point,
asteroid is coming to the Earth.
Meteorite or asteroid or something like that. And the whole point is that when we nuke them, right, we're going to push them. If they think they're coming within 1 million miles of the Earth, which is close, close, right? Then you nuke them to move them by even 1 degree off their current orbit, and shove them out by 1 degree means that suddenly when they reach Earth orbit, if you nuke them millions of miles away, suddenly when they reach Earth orbit, they're 10 million miles away, so not as close as we want to do it. So 1 degree shift in that orbit does that.
Yeah. That's that was really interesting when I was hearing about that. I remember the Strategic Defense Initiative. We used to talk about that in the 90s or whenever.
Well, I think it was more science fiction than science fact.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Right? And the thing is, hey, I'm not a great warmonger. I prefer that we have peace. But if we're actually 61 billion spent on being part of the Golden Dome, if it's a reality, is not a bad cost to make.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. I did have to determine, if this is something that would have to be negotiated.
Yeah,
if this is
absolutely.
something, yeah,
absolutely.
but it's something that, do we really want to throw $51 billion at the U.S. and for an initiative that may or may not happen?
Yeah, that is a very good question as well. Right.
Yeah. And Donald Trump, I mean, by the time that gets developed or even put into the thinking and the shovels in the ground stage, by the time that happens, I said Trump will be gone.
Yeah, as I say, I know that there was missiles put up there as part of the Strategic Defense Initiative, but again, I don't think they even work anymore.
Ran out of batteries.
Sorry, I'm being cynical, right?
Yeah.
And right at the time when King Charles was he's making this on Truth Social, right at the time when King Charles III is delivering his throne speech to the Canadian Parliament, particularly focusing on Canada's sovereignty and the need to bolster national defense.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's well, I'll tell you, this guy is he's both strategic and plus he is very much of a clown.
Yeah, it's the clown that bothers me.
Yes, exactly. And unfortunately, I think he's serious about some of this stuff. But I also think he's a little not right in the head.
Well, also, let us explore something. When you think about this as a potential, right? So 90% of the Canadian population lives within 100 miles of the US border. Now, just think about two cities for a moment. You've got Toronto, and you've got less than 100 miles away from Toronto as the crows fly, you've got Buffalo. So how would you know if you tracking an inbound ICBM of some kind, and it's inbound is it inbound to Toronto, or is it inbound to Buffalo? You don't know. By the time you have to make a decision, you're probably firing it out the sky, even though it's Toronto bound.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You wouldn't know. It's coming. You've got to make the decision early. How many minutes? It's about 20 minutes for those satellites. On the traditional, it's coming from Russia nonsense, right?
Yeah, Russia sending his rockets over.
Yeah. It takes 20 minutes for the rocket from the rocket launch to the rocket impact for us to to be able to we've got 20 minutes basically, if I'm remembering the old scare things that happened back in the 60s, 70s and 80s. And if the rocket's not coming, if the rocket's coming from Russia, it's coming across the North Pole, right? And they've got minutes to decide where it's going. That's where the strategic defense stuff comes into play, because you're going to shoot them down. You've got to figure out where it's going, and you've got to hit these things at least 1,000 miles away from where they're going to be landing.
Yep, exactly. Right. You have to have some. Well, first of all, you got to have some pretty good aim.
Yeah.
And secondly, you got to have somebody who's going to be watching that thing all the time.
Yeah, and let's assume, traditionally, traditionally aim. Traditionally, the Americans are better aimers than the Russians.
Yep.
The Russians will send a nuke up, targeting Buffalo and hit Toronto.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas the Americans might kill a lot of people in friendly fire. They might rain a missile defense system down on Ottawa, trying to get an inbound ICBM, but they're trying to shoot. They're going after a dedicated target.
Yeah.
They'll kill people in friendly fire, in other words.
Oh, yes.
That's an American record, isn't it? Kill people in friendly fire.
Yeah, they got a pretty bad record with some of these things.
Yeah. I'm being Mr. Cynical here this morning, but hey, Donny boy, you're giving us an opportunity. Right? I just don't think Golden Dome is even a goer, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I just don't think it could happen at this point. If it does, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of years and a lot of work being put into it. And as I said, Trump will be gone. A brand new government, brand new president.
And not wishing him ill well.
Yeah, but there's a 4-year term,
He would probably be dead by then.
Yeah, exactly. And even then, there's just a 4-year term.
Okay? Yeah, exactly.
So, it's so. This guy is so. I thought Reagan was bad. Hey, with some of this stuff.
But Reagan was actually.
I didn't think he could get down to that level.
Yeah, but Reagan actually was a bit more practical than Trump is sometimes.
Yeah.
Well,
at least Reagan, I said, what came out of his mouth, most of it actually made sense. I still got some videos of Reagan. Okay?
I love the "Let's bomb Russia" moment with
exactly. That was
Ronnie.
good. 5 minutes.
I'm assuming there's nobody listening, so let's test the mic. Let's bomb Russia. and this is going live to the world. Yeah.
Yep. Everybody heard that
one. Yeah. At least. Well, I don't know. Actually, Donald Trump doesn't seem to bother when he opens his mouth. He just wants to do it anyway, right?
Yeah, he doesn't care what kind of bad press, embarrassing press, or whatever he gets. He just, long as it's press, anything's attention.
Yeah.
Put it up on social.
Okay, we've got some comments on this one. We've got some comments on this one.
Betty has been busy.
Eddie has been very busy. Oh my God. Okay. So we will never be 51st state. Daniel does not like Trudeau, and Trump says Trudeau is governor for it. Right. Canada needs to do something, but dealing with Trump is not on the cards. Yeah. Both just about lawyers. Is there anything people in Canada do something to stop this bullshit? Yeah. I agree. We have to worry as well above as well as below, and the quakes with the quakes all happening. Yeah. Fires galore right now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And the king says we are in a critical moment. What does that mean? Okay. Do you want to talk about that one, Angela?
Yeah, I think so. I think we should. I think we're at a juncture right now because we're dealing with a lot of things worldwide and globally, and this is at a stage where we have to start shifting global alliances. Okay?
Yeah.
This is exactly as Mark Carney was talking about, how to get trade agreements with different countries, and having a trade and economic and security agreement with the U.S. It doesn't mean that they're going to be our dominant partner,
Yeah.
but they will be a partner. So what it
Well, I
looks like
think
Carney is looking for is, let's decide what we want,
yeah,
as opposed
I
to
think
what the U.S. wants.
yeah, and I think that's the whole point, is that we've built relations now with the European Union. We've always had ongoing relations with Britain. We should be building relations with Australia, New Zealand, and the other parts of the English-speaking world, South Africa, you know, Brazil, even Mexico, even those should be our partners, right? And we need to do that. You know, we need to do that starting now, and we support anybody who's trying to export.
Yep, exactly. And there is going to be a NATO meeting coming up, where
Yeah,
members of the NATO nations are getting together and they're going to be talking. So this is why we're getting delayed in the budget, because Carney's taken some time. We need to know what people are talking about, what they're expecting, and we need to know what we need to do about it.
that's fair,
Yeah.
right? Becky's saying, I don't listen to that strange man's words. He's nothing to me. He's a rich ass, and liberals are getting away with it. We're so weak, and the people allow it all.
I think
I
we
think
have somebody who's very smart, who's in power right now. And I think I don't even think the Americans are going to put up with this. Because anytime I go into an American site and they're talking about it, and the subject of 51st state comes up, he said, yeah, right. Yeah. Some of them would rather be an 11th.
In any case, 51st state, you don't want one state. You'd end up with you know, you'd end up with more than one state. You'd end up with 13.
Yeah,
New states.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Like we see Alberta trying to court Donald Trump. So I don't know. I don't know if they really could do it, or if they even have the legal rights to.
I don't even think they have the legal rights to.
Yeah,
to
because Alberta is all treaty land. They have the Aboriginals, and the treaties are with the Crown before Alberta even existed. So this is going to be a very, very difficult issue for them to deal with. So for them to go around and play with sovereignty and play with people's heads in Alberta is crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't even think any of them, or like maybe some of them, might like to join the US. And I say, well, if they really like to join the US, they can always pack their bags and move.
Yeah, but I think they like their Canadian benefits a lot more.
Yeah, exactly. Because one of the things.
It's go on.
You got a job opportunity there.
Yeah, well, we'll come to that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the things. All right, we'll move on. All right. Yeah. So a new councillor is needed for Port Colburn. And this is interesting one. And I think this is undemocratic. I'm going to be blunt and out there, and it is undemocratic. They're talking about people putting in resumes and as to reason why you want to become regional councillor for the city, with applications being accepted until June 13th. I think this is undemocratic. Obviously, good luck to Niagara South's new MP, Bill Davis. Is it
Fred Davis?
Fred Davis.
Yeah.
Good luck to Fred. Good luck on his journey as Niagara South's MP. I trust that you're going to be representing Niagara South well. And it's good to see new blood in Parliament. I always believe that. I'm not going to go talk about the election at all. Just good luck to Fred. The question here is what you do. Why, if they were going to pick somebody, surely you pick the person who came in, next on the list of the voters at the last election.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to pick somebody quick, and I get that you don't want to pay $100,000 for a new by-election. 100%.
Why not? We're paying $2 million to have another man elected in a seat in another seat because he lost his first one.
Yeah, but again, this comes out of a regional budget, Angela.
Oh yes, yeah,
right. And
well, that's even worse.
And a regional budget, which really impacts the people of this region, right? We don't want that. We don't want to be.
Well, it's already bad because they're already planning a budget hike. They're trying to cap it off at 3.5. How much do you want to bet that's not going to work?
Well, I wish Bob Gale all the luck in getting that 3.5. I'm 100% in support of that.
Yeah, but you have to be conscious. I like the transit. They need to focus on the transit. I don't know about the cops. I think the police, they keep asking for more and more money every year. And
yeah.
And are we really that unsafe in Niagara? Are we really?
The thing that bothers me about the cops is that there's a reputation around here that unfortunately Niagara police don't solve crime.
Yeah, exactly. They're very busy going around fetching donuts and different things from donut shops and driving the cruisers around.
And I know that's an unpopular decision, it's an unpopular statement. And, and basically, Mike would cut my head off as not Mike. I mean, Dave would cut my head off for saying it. He said, "Oh no, there's nothing wrong with that." It's the next stage, but we're not putting away enough criminals. That's for sure. We're not actually.
Well, it really depends on what you mean by criminals and what we're doing and putting away. Like I've taught criminology for many years, and there's a lot of things that we're doing. And if you want to go in the direction of more police, more lockups, more jails, that sort of thing, we're not going to be solving crime very well.
Yeah.
But it's depend on what people think. People think, oh, well, let's put more money into police and so forth, because it's always popular. Well, I like police as much as the next person. And but the thing is, there really isn't as much crime as people think there is.
No, there isn't a huge amount of crime, but we also how many times have we heard the situation whereby the corner store got robbed and the person gets out on bail and goes and robs another corner store.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. That's a disgusting state of affairs.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they have to look at that, and they just have to review that. And I think that's a job for the courts, to have more.
I agree. Yeah. And hey, I'm not putting that one on the region, but again,
the region can't do anything about it.
I'm a bit uncertain about the what they're doing in Port Colburn. As to being the right choice. Obviously, you've got to be a Port Colburn resident before you can apply. And
do they?
Yes, I believe they do.
So I can't parachute a candidate in.
No. And Ward 4 Councilor Ron Bodner makes the point that most region meetings happen during the day, so they've got to be available daytime.
Yeah, and I think that's another interesting thing too, because if you're a regional councilor, isn't that a part-time job, or is it?
It's a full-time job.
Yeah,
regional
because they don't really pay that much as a full-time job.
No, they're actually paid. They're paid double what most city councillors are paid. They're in the 40 to 50 K bracket.
Yeah. Because
as opposed to the 25K bracket, 50 to 60K, I mean, as opposed to the 25K bracket, which most city councillors are in.
A lot of them have businesses or something. I know one of them does have a job on the side that she has a business.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
it's not like you have to be full time and not.
It's not full time, but it's more full time than a city council member.
Yeah. Because I know the
and if you want to be cynical, there's always the Vince Carrier approach, which is I'm breaking open the bundle as I'm walking into the council meeting. I've never looked at it. I'm relying upon staff recommendation.
Ooh. So then he's relying on the intelligence and the integrity of the staff.
Well, and I'm not knocking the staff, because the staff do, the staff do a wonderful job in very often tough circumstances. But is that the right way to do it? You need to put a bit of logic in it? Don't you need to do your own investigation?
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken with Laurie Lococo, and Laurie spends a lot of time. She probably spends 50 hours a week on, 50, 60 hours a week on council business.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them who do that.
Yeah,
and who are semi-retired, and they will spend a lot more time.
Well, yeah, and the same, yeah, exactly. So some of the retired members, we had people like Wayne Campbell before he died. He put in time because he was retired, right?
Mm-hmm. The same as Joe Kushner. He's constantly doing things. He's a very active person despite his age.
Yeah. And okay, so they've got to get a new council member, but I'm not so sure I like the way that you want to do it. And I know that
competition last time for council.
Pardon me?
Did Port Colburn have competition last time for council? Why don't they just point the runner-up?
Yeah, appoint the runner-up is what I would be doing. Point the next runner-up. Yeah,
because that's what most places do if they don't want to elect.
Yeah, and that's the fairest mechanism, because if Fred Davis got 20, if Fred Davis got 10,000 votes, and the next person on the list got got the next person unelected on the list got, let's say, 4,000 votes, then that person should get the job.
Absolutely, because that person ran. They went and bothered running and got in and tried to get in, and then when the night came, they didn't get in. So Fred Davies gets a better job. He gets a promotion, so then he should get in.
Yeah, exactly. That particular individual should be at least asked, "Hey, Mary Smith, do you wish to become regional councillor?"
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Rather than running through a list of every Joe Who's,
Yeah. Because how many job apps are you going to get, and how many of those job apps are like the, "Hey, I need a job. Any job gives a job."
Well, maybe somebody who has been a paper boy before and may want to start entering politics.
Wow! Right.
You know who I'm taking a jab at.
Yes, we know. Okay, so also rubber stamping is not the way to do the job of a city councillor. 100% agree.
Yeah,
the province of Ontario is short 50 judges, waiting for Ford to step up and appoint some more.
Well, there is a bill now before Parliament that is going to look at how to speed up some of the appointments.
I thought we actually appointed a whole bundle last year.
We did. There were a few appointed. There's going to be a few more, because there's a bill that will enable that to happen through the appointments advisory. And I was just reading the bill yesterday.
Okay. I thought we had actually appointed a bundle. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's move on again. Niagara-on-the-Lake is to adopt internet voting, and in part this is because of concerns about Canada Post reliability, higher cost associated with mail-in ballots, and staff recommended voting as a preferred alternative, internet voting as a preferred alternative. So this was adopted by Niagara-on-the-Lake 6-3 on Tuesday, but it was, so it was a close vote there.
If we can guarantee that it works and that it can't be rigged in any way, that would be a good system.
Well, also the other thing that I would like to see is that if we can, can we figure out a way where we can actually punch our vote into a machine? So we get given a piece of paper that gives the instructions about how we vote onto a machine, and that we vote on the machine. Right,
like at the voting station,
at the polling station, right?
Mm-hmm.
It might be just a touch. It might be just a touch sensitive a pad that you get to use. Right?
But what if you make a mistake?
Yeah, and that's the case where probably what you have to do is call over an election worker.
Yeah,
because you're also going to get the situation of I can't press the vote button; it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. I had situations when I used to work the elections. I worked the elections, almost all of them except the last 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Okay? And then the last couple of them I ran. So
there has to be some guarantees for internet voting. I typically, even though everybody knows me as the tech geek, love technology, I've always been very cautious about internet voting because of the possibility. And let's not start a conspiracy theory here. The possibility that these things can be interfered with.
Yeah, or people can vote twice because they might have more than one internet identity.
Okay? Well, actually, it's not about the internet identity. You still get those voter cards that come through the mail, but it's like, well, I'm going to vote. I've got now 4 voter cards that came through, but I'm going to vote. I'm going to use Auntie Mary's vote because I know Auntie Mary never votes.
Oh, yes.
Right. So how do you guarantee that you're not doing that?
Yeah.
Because the person has the voter card in front of them, right? They're reading off the details off the voter card there. They're doing precisely the thing, and they're voting on the same machine as they've just personally voted on 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is like, I'm wondering if there's a way to do this as sort of like the census when I filled out the census.
Yeah.
And there's 1 number per household, which we used. So I filled in the thing through the census. I went on the computer and put my code in and filled it out. Right? Yeah. But I don't know how that can be guaranteed. Like maybe there's some geekheads in there that can maybe propose this, but how is that going to be done so people aren't going to use others' votes or maybe develop a whole new way of forging it somehow? It's got to be a way of checks and balances. We checked things because we had paper ballots and we knew who came in, and I know Joe didn't come in twice, so we have that.
Yeah, and exactly. So the point being is that, well, in fact, actually, I still think it's crazy that when I went to the poll, one of the last 2 polls that I went to, and I'm carrying my voter card with me, right? I'm surprised they didn't take it off me.
Yeah.
They should take that voter card off me, put it in the bin so it can't be faked.
Actually, when I showed up the last time they did insist on taking my voter card and asked me to see the ID when I went in.
Yeah.
This was a person at the door.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, you go over there at one particular place for one of the DROs there. So I went there. Then the DRO wanted to look at my ID.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought it was actually well run where I was.
Yeah, that's correct. That's the correct approach. And your ID has to match your card. Absolutely. Right.
Exactly.
Because
they do look at you, and they also look at your picture. Does it look like you?
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like your 18-year-old son when you're a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further thoughts on that? I'm always been 50-50 and very ambivalent. I'm Mr. Internet. Everybody knows me. I'm Mr. Technology, love the internet and everything like this, but I've always been a supporter of if you want to get people out to vote, it's get them involved in the street, get them involved in activities. Being here behind the screen here is not being involved.
Yeah, like if you just go onto Facebook and become a keyboard warrior, I don't think that constitutes political activity.
Yeah. Well, in a way it does, because, hey, you can get a lot of votes through Facebook.
Yeah, well, Facebook, if you're just kind of doing like community moderation discussion, that's different. But going on to into groups and going, I can't stand that Trudeau, and I can't stand that Mark Carney, and I can't stand that Polyev. Well, like that, come on. Do something, go out in the street, get concerned about your neighborhood, get concerned about the environment, get concerned about all of that stuff.
Yeah. And actually, that I hate Mark Carney, or I hate, whoever, or
it's not an informed thing. It's an emotional.
A declaration of wanting to have sex with whoever the leader is.
Well, they're getting a lot of sex, Peter. Okay.
Is not a political statement. I'd much prefer a person who comes up to me and says, "Hey, Peter, your beliefs about municipal budgets are wrong. We need to do X and Y and Z." I'd love a debate about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like when we're talking about the region and how the region's trying to blow up its budget all the time.
Yeah.
And where do we cut? Where do we keep it? Where do we increase?
Yeah.
And like I try to take an intellectual approach about what we need and what we're looking at in the next 30 to 50 years.
Yeah.
And we have to do an incrementalism.
And also, I'm very conscious of the fact that when it comes down to budgets and the like, there are times when you actually absolutely must spend upon something new, and it's right, and it's the right thing to do for the community. And if the new thing is the right thing to do now, and it costs you $40 million to do it, let's do it now and spend that or commit that $40 million now, and make sure that we're not going to be spending $80 million, delay it and delay it and delay it, and spend $80 million in 10 years' time.
Yeah. This is where there's a lot of, like in certain things in the region, that some things that the province helps, and then there's some things that the region does on its own, or that's done down to the municipalities. Like there's a lot of division there, and we have to.
Let me ask you this one question. It was discussed back in 2013. I was watching in 2013 a Niagara Falls City Council meeting, and the people involved in it was Wayne Gates and Victor Peterangelo, and both of them spoke in favor of the Morrison Street Bridge across the QEW. It is now 2025. Does a Morrison Street Bridge across the QEW exist? Not a chance. There's a stretch of land that's been put aside for it on the Morrison Street side.
And has that money been spent?
On the other, well, I don't know what has happened to that.
Or how many times has that money been spent?
But again, I don't know I don't remember what the original cost was, but if the original cost was, let's say, $50 million back in 2015, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be something like $150 million today.
Yeah. To do that, like we've had an issue with our bridge, the Burgoyne Street
Burgoyne Bridge,
Burgoyne Bridge, which was that was a disaster. It was supposed to come in at 40 or 50 million at that time, but it came up more than double.
Yeah,
because they just do this cost overruns and time. Like it's going to take another 6 months to a year to complete, and then they have people robbing the construction company of tools and everything. It's just, I don't know. It's just, that one came out to be a joke.
I think that Burgoyne Bridge since the very beginning has been a joke.
Yeah, exactly. And they have to make it really fancy. Don't forget that. You have to have a really fancy bridge. And, because we have to use it as a tourist attraction, right? People come into St. Catharines and look at that bridge.
Yeah. Yeah, tourist attraction. Then you need to have people selling tourist hat around the edge of it, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
not, and hey, once they put the spikes up on the outside of the bridge, it's a horrible looking bridge. It's a beautiful piece of architecture before putting the spikes up. The spikes up have made it a horrible looking bridge.
Yeah, well, they have to prevent people from jumping off the bridge, but I'm not sure how much that's preventing people from doing suicide.
I don't think so either. It doesn't.
There's other methods people use, or they can choose another bridge.
Exactly. Right. So what all you've done is spent millions of extra dollars in protecting people, stopping people from jumping from the Burgoyne Bridge, when in fact they can just now go around to another bridge and jump off that.
Yep, exactly.
I'm not recommending anybody go jump anywhere, of course.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Yeah.
I tell people to jump in a lake sometimes, Go jump in a lake. Oh, go fly a kite.
Yeah. That's a different matter, though. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, Bill 5, Ontario Bill 5, controversial, been a bit controversial, but the Ford government is wanting to add a duty to consult First Nations to this.
Oh my God. Something they should have done in the first place.
Yes.
These big economic zones they wanted to create, where they just wanted to put them, like, this is all about the Ring of Fire. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and First Nations have to be discussed with.
Well, absolutely. Are you putting in something like this, and and again, you've got to look at and consider any Aboriginal treaty rights that currently exist for that, and particularly take into consideration like the Constitution Act, and or the the Charter, the Constitution Act, Section 35 particularly, and good idea to create special economic zones. Don't get me wrong, I support. It's something I would generally support.
Yeah,
but it has to be done the right way,
careful way, so that you're not trampling on rights of Indigenous peoples. And I'm pretty sure that there will be a lot of cooperation that way.
Yeah, and actually, I think I was talking with Dave. Remember, we were talking with Dave earlier in the week in relation to Aboriginal land and that. And one of the things that I think we were talking about was the need for Aboriginal people to be involved in the community generally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And get involved in all the planning decisions and different things, just like the rest of us, where they need to be out there, because this is their land. We need to talk about their original land, and they need to have that say.
Yeah.
Especially in Alberta now that they all want to.
Yeah, that's another matter entirely. So basically, the idea is that they want to create special economic zones where the government can exempt companies or projects from complying with provincial laws and legislations. I'm always a bit cautious about that. I like the idea of special economic zones, but laws and regulations are there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm not sure we want to flout them. I'm very much a supporter that we actually keep the laws in place. But we do need to do something to unlock economic prosperity. I agree.
Yep, and this is something that's going to happen, because I think the Ford government was getting a lot of pushback on Bill 5 because of the First Nations issue and some environmental issues. So this is...
And the kind of Ring of Fire, it has to happen. We know that.
Yeah.
All right. It's a part of what we need to do to develop Ontario. And like the thing we were talking, Dave and I were talking about earlier this week about the need for um, um, First Nations to be involved in industrial operations that affect their land, and this was an initiative in BC where they're actually working with a corporation, but the native Canadians actually own 51%. You know the you know the nations own 51% of the of it.
Yep, exactly. And this is where it's
And they get the jobs.
yeah,
They largely
exactly.
get the jobs. It doesn't
Yep.
mean to say 100% of all jobs are going to come off the reservation, but it
They're
means
going to
that
get them through the community and so forth, and it's
yeah,
going to help, and that actually boosts the economy of that community.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so very quick. Come on. Yeah. So Betty's saying there are treaties. There were treaties since when, and they couldn't read. Oh my, yeah. And one of the biggest problems that Dave was talking about with many of these treaties is that, in fact, actually, what unfortunately, what the way that the treaties were built is that some white man lawyer came along with a treaty, wrapped a lot of these treaties up in legal words that that provided so many options, so many get outs for the government, that in fact actually it badly impacted the native Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, yeah, you have all this land, but under these conditions, we can take it away from you.
Yeah, and some of that right now is the same that's going on today with some of the reservations and off the like on reserve properties. Still things that's coming on today, like with drinking water, proper housing, proper education. There's a lot of things that need so much improvement, but this is the kind of thing that they had, and this is just a microcosm of what they had to live with.
Yeah. Okay. So, Karen's saying Ford government is expected to amend its okay, CBC's Lorinda Redcott reports the change comes from fierce criticism for Indigenous leaders and activists.
Yeah, that was
Absolutely.
a pushback. That's a
Yeah.
result of Ford making some changes because there's enough pushback. Okay, so it tells you that pushback does work.
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually, that is one of the things I would say that is positive about Ford. Ford thinks of an idea and says we need to do X, right? And if he gets kickback on X, he listens to the kickback.
Yeah, like if people show up with the torches and pitchforks, he'll say, "Okay, okay, okay, let's sit down and let's talk."
Yeah, yeah, and
There
I
are
know
other
that.
problems in this bill, though. Hey, there's some other problems with Bill 5, because it exerts more power for the provincial government, and takes some more away from municipal areas. And this is one of the things that I
That
think also needs to be looked at.
Well, this is actually one of the problems that I see, with Bill 5 is the checks and balances are being reduced.
Yeah,
The
and I
check
think that
and whilst Ford has made a big thing, and to some extent he is right
mhm,
about one of the problems with many municipalities is the fact that they actually want to block all development. They see their role um, as like see no, as see no development, hear no development, smell no development. We're not going to, you want to come here, you want to build, it's not going to happen. That's our role, is to keep the pristine green.
oh
Right?
yeah,
and,
there's a lot of problems with
and
that. Like we have
yeah,
problems, particularly in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Everything has to be so proper. And then it can take 10, 15 years to even say a yes or no.
yeah, yeah. and proper, and question. And there are some municipalities that really are out there to block everything you want to try and do. I understand why he wants to get more done, but also I also am a great believer in those checks and balances, that we have multiple levels of government for good reason, because the people who know about the the local impact are going to be the local municipalities.
Yeah, he wants to be looked at as a premier who got the most housing built or the most industry built that are brought to Ontario. He wants to be looked at as that.
I would applaud him.
How he does this.
Yeah.
Okay? How he does this.
Yeah. Yeah. How he does this.
Is going a little funny.
Okay. So how you were saying how he does this?
Yeah, how he does this is very important. Okay? Because like there's great goals, great outcomes that you want to see, is that you have to look at your strategic initiatives, how each step is going to be taken and who's going to be involved. This is where it's very important.
Yeah.
Okay, because as a business, we can decide. You and I can sit there and do things and where we're going to go, how much it's going to cost, and who we're going to talk to. But when you're dealing with a provincial leader, things are very complicated. You got so many different interests pulling at you all different directions, and you have to be able to achieve that goal by dealing with these different directions that people are pulling you in and the different interests that are there. And a lot of times people say, hell with them. I said, didn't we ever hear about the gatekeepers? Let's just get rid of the gatekeepers. Hey, I never knew who the gatekeepers were. I mean, I'd like to be their autograph.
And then we also have the problem with the lobby, lobbyists who come into Parliament. It's like,
yes, they already got in trouble. Ford's people already got in trouble with that one.
Yeah, your Bill 92, it needs to be changed to have more of this.
Yep, there has to be a lot more of there has to be some control on the lobbyists.
Yeah. Oh, in fact, actually, business lobbying should, business and group lobbying should stop. We should be banning all of that at all levels of Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The only type of lobbying I'd like to see, because the problem with lobbyists is they come in with money.
Yeah.
Come in with bribes. Come in with things like that. And there are politicians who would accept that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to have something so that they can't.
Yeah. Well, and the where the lobbying started is lobbying was people like, you kind of say to everybody around you, I've got a problem. My problem is whatever it is, right? I don't care what your problem is. But now you've spoken to everybody in your neighborhood, and somebody said, well, it's time you need to go speak with Doug Ford, right? So off you trog to Queen's Park, and you say, I want to see Doug Ford, right? Mm-hmm. And they say, yeah, okay, sit there in the lobby, and we'll try to get somebody to you, right? So what will happen is one of Doug Ford's workers will come visit you. Somebody from the PMO will come visit you. That's true lobbying, because you've got a problem that you need fixing.
Yeah, exactly. And there are very serious reasons why people might truly need to talk to Doug Ford or any of their cabinet ministers.
And they probably don't actually need to speak with Doug Ford. They just need to get the ear of somebody in Parliament
who has some influence.
Yeah.
Generally, that's what lobbyists do. They don't talk to Doug Ford. They talk to people who are close to him. And they also speak to high levels of the cabinet of Treasury Secretariat,
I'm all in favor of small person lobbying. You've got a problem, you go to Parliament. Absolutely, 100%. Do it. If you can't, first port of call is go see your city councillor. Right. Second port of call is go try and see your MPP or your MP. Go lobby Parliament.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
But you should have the right to do that.
Back in the day, I used to do quite a bit of that stuff, and I used to have meetings with ministers around the table, with minister associates, advisors, and I used to also have meetings where there was a number of staff, interministerial committees involved.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting but there's always specific agendas. And if you're going to go in there, you try to set an agenda or try to influence the agenda to set it so that there's some discussion that will enable you to bring forward the issues that you're representing.
Yeah. And agenda-driven lobbying is of course the worst.
Oh, when they start getting things where somebody else is going to get money, their pockets, that's stuff that scares me.
It's the big oil, big drug, big whatever that always bothers me.
And you have somebody who has them on their staff, these lobbyists, they have them on their paid staff that we're paying for, you and I. And I have some issues with that.
Well, one of the problems about lobbying is kind of nothing wrong with the oil industry. But why should the oil industry have an extra say in Parliament that you and I don't get?
Exactly. Because this is something that, because then the oil industries, what they do is they finance think tanks, which know how to get out there and influence the way people think about things. Like they have a lot of think tanks. Oh, we're paying too many taxes. Oh, our healthcare should be cut. We should have private healthcare, which will help people. So they will get people a lot of ideas that may not necessarily be true or based on fact, but based on the interests of whoever's financing them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like I've actually traced a lot of it to Atlas, to other groups in the States, Heritage even, and they're funding Canadian interests.
Karen is saying that Ford is building more power for himself through this bill.
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning, that there was a lot of usurping of municipal say.
All right, let's finish this off today by a quick thing on this one, which Dave and I always do when we hear about them. So public health and inspectors have temporarily closed a mobile food business. It happens to be the craft food truck at Niagara College, Niagara-on-the-Lake campus. Trouble is that typically, and they've closed a couple of other food trucks as well. Other temporary closures this week, last week as well. And typically what it is a reminder to the food industry, hey, keep your surfaces clean, keep your places clean, keep them hygienic, and don't be, because they can come and inspect at any time.
Yep, exactly. And they have the power to shut you down. And then they come back later on to make sure while you were shut down that you cleaned up and fixed the items that they were concerned about.
And most of the when these things are concerned, most of the ones that have happened, there's things like surfaces that have come into contact with food are clean, in a sanitary condition. Maybe the person who did it forgot to clean up after while during the course of their work. Right.
Yeah, it just happens that like a lot of these health inspectors that come by during times that are random.
Yeah.
And people, it might come by through a busy time, and then they find somebody might have forgotten something.
Yeah.
And then they see that, and then they say, okay, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And we're going to shut you down for 24 hours, and we'll come back and we'll check to see that it's done.
And 99% of the time, they're simple fixes.
Yeah, they'll fix it up and they'll be found to be in compliance and the reinspection.
Yeah, exactly. So tomorrow's reinspection, when it's actually pre-arranged, etc., they come along and they'll probably slap you with a fine to say, hey, don't be doing that again.
Yeah, give a little slap on the wrist.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that we do have these food inspectors coming around to our food establishments, because you think about it, we rely upon them for we rely upon them in the community for a lot of the food provision that we get, right?
Absolutely. Like if you go to a restaurant and you're taking somebody out and you want to eat at a restaurant, you want to make sure that that food is reliable, that's properly cooked, that you're not going to get food poisoning from it, okay? And that the restaurant's environment is clean. And then when you go to the washroom, you want to make sure that there's working facilities. So these things like that we rely upon as customers. We want to go in there, and places like public health and that, they make sure that that happens.
Yeah, and you know, we often criticize the health inspectors for closing places down, but I think it's a good thing that they do. It's a short, sharp reminder to actually keep things in a good state.
Yeah, they regulate a number of places: tattoo parlors, nail salons, restaurants, different places. So they just want to make sure that things are done in a proper sanitary manner.
Yeah. And obviously, there's different people inspecting tattoo parlors than inspecting food shops.
They have different people who specialize
different skill level.
Yeah.
But health inspectors are an important part of actually making sure that the food we get out, in, you know, even in food trucks, is all sanitary.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Because food trucks are always the ones that show up. Like, say, you have Grape and Wine Festival, Ribfest. You have a number of things that go out, and then you want to make sure that what you're getting out of them is safe and reliable. Okay, so that you're not purchasing salmonella when you purchase your sandwich or your.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So it kind of, that's about where we're going to end it today. Are you going to be with us tomorrow, Angela?
Yeah, if you want me.
Okay. Yeah,
if you want me, I'm here.
Happy to have you come. And hey, I actually put a link down earlier on. If anybody, and I might do the same tomorrow. So if you want to, if you're brave enough and you want to come on the show, click on the link. So I'm going to invite anybody. We can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we'll figure out during the course of the day what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, we can talk about that and see what exciting things that we can talk about, what's going on. Yeah, I was thinking of Bill 6. That would be good.
Okay. Let's talk during the day about that. And absolutely, we can do that. Okay. So have a great day, everybody. And I'm not Dave, so I'm not finishing the Dave way. But have a great day, everybody. Remember, tell people about Talking Niagara. Get your friends involved. Get the community involved, and get people to come and watch us. And remember, there
will be things that we're changing about our website so that we'll be able to get people onto.
You're talking about the company website.
Yeah, not only Invictus, but also.
No, but you're not talking about. You're talking about different things. You're off topic. Is it Talking Niagara?
Oh yeah, it gives me
not Invictus. Not Invictus. All right.
Okay.
I might be setting up a Talking Niagara YouTube, but at the moment I'm leaving it on my own personal YouTube. All right.
Yeah.
So everybody have a great day, and